Okay, continuing on here in chapter 1 of How to Read the Bible for All It's Worth, we're going to be on slide number 15 in the PowerPoint, talking about the literary context. Okay, and basically, the literary context simply means that words only have meaning in sentences. And second, that biblical sentences, for the most part, have full and clear meaning only in relation to the preceding and succeeding sentences. Okay, what does that mean? It means read the Bible in context. Okay, read the paragraph before the paragraph you're looking at and the paragraph after you're looking at, and then use that to help you understand it. Okay, in other words, do what you learned hopefully by the time you were in junior high. Is that if you're going to understand a sentence in a story or a sentence in a piece of literature in any way, shape, or form, don't just read that sentence and pull it out of context, okay? Because you're going to misinterpret it. You need to read the entire paragraph. You also need to read perhaps the paragraph before it and maybe another paragraph before it and the paragraph after it, okay? Because if you just pull text out and say, well, that's what that means, and how many of us do something like that accidentally, we talk about the refrigerator verses, okay? You pull a verse out of the Bible that speaks to you and you put it on your fridge, and that's great, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it becomes problematic when that's how you interpret the scripture, okay? Let me see if I can get this right. A text without a context is a pretext for a proof text. In other words, you use a scripture to prove something, but you've pulled it entirely out of the context in which it was written in, and then you interpret it differently, and it's disconnected from any of its original meaning, and suddenly now you're misapplying it, okay? That's what they're talking about, okay? Make sure you don't do that. Another question they say that's a great one to ask when you're reading the Bible is just ask, what's the point, okay? Why did the writer say that? Okay, figure that out. These are good questions to ask, okay? They give examples of different versions of the Bible. The King James Version and the New American Standard has every verse printed as a paragraph, okay? And so that leads to inaccurate exegesis, okay? Whereas you take the NIV, and that is, it's written in paragraph format, so you're seeing the flow of ideas connected with one another, versus the King James is every sentence is like a paragraph. So you miss out on flow, okay? You miss out on the continuity of thought, okay? Again, I'm not ragging on the King James Version, okay? If that's your favorite, some people say, listen, it was good enough for the Apostle Paul, it's good enough for me, right? And that's a joke. Okay, but you gotta recognize about the NASB and the King James Version is if every sentence is a paragraph, there is a tendency for you to miss the big idea within that paragraph, because again, it's not in a paragraph whatsoever. If you go to slide number 16, you're talking about the question of content, okay? Content has to do with the meaning of words, their grammatical relationship in sentences, the choice of the original text, where the manuscripts differ from one another. Okay, let me just say it this way. We do not have the original copy of the Old Testament or the New Testament, okay? What we have, in other words, these are called the autographs. Okay, don't think of autograph like signing your name, but the autograph is another name for the actual original copy of Deuteronomy penned by Moses, okay? The actual copy of the book of 1 Corinthians penned by the Apostle Paul. Okay, we don't have those, but we have manuscripts. We have copies of them. Okay, so that's what they're talking about there. Okay, and so it's important to understand, that about when you're understanding the Bible. Again, that's where having a good translation of the Bible is really, really important, because the translation that you have that is drawing from manuscripts closest to the original is the best reading of the scripture, okay? The worst is, again, one of the examples they give in the text is the King James Version, is it's based from manuscripts often 1,000 years removed from some of the originals, okay? And so, again, you have the tendency of misreading various aspects of the scripture. Again, if you insist on King James Version, because after all, that's what the Apostle Paul read, okay? A great suggestion is get a parallel Bible. Okay, get a Bible that is King James Version than the NIV version. Okay, so you can kind of compare and contrast as you read it. Okay, things of that nature is really, really helpful. So I'm going to stop right there because this is a good break, and we'll get into some of the tools of understanding the scriptures.